World Cities, which is designed to empower leaders to survey the world cities for creative solutions to New York's most entrenched challenges, starting with the housing crisis, as you guys know. So we'll walk you through the program goals, through the structure. We'll talk through the timeline and the application process, and then we'll open it up to questions. We'll open the floor to questions. But we also encourage you to enter those questions into the chat on an ongoing basis, and we can circle back to those at the end. So I know there's a lot of familiar folks here, also some new to the forum. So for those who are new to the organization, the Urban Design Forum is a civic nonprofit that is dedicated to connecting and inspiring New Yorkers to build, design, and care for a better city. So it's a community of over 1,000 members. These are civic leaders who are deeply committed to a more just future for the city. And at the core of this work is the conviction that the built environment is really the driving force that shapes the city's health, culture, community, economy rather, and everyone has a role to play in creating this city. And so, we recognize that so few people actually have the opportunity to shape the public conversation on the future of New York. So our role as an institution is to bring together New Yorkers of diverse backgrounds and experiences to learn, to debate, and to design a more vibrant and just city. And the way in which we do that is throughout the year, we convene courageous conversations. We partner with city government to shape public policy. We invest in local leaders and public spaces across the city. And then we also nurture the next generation of diverse leadership. And this is all in service of better equipping the city to confront the defining challenges of today and those that will also shape the future of the city. So this new multi-year initiative, of which the fellowship is the key component, is called Global Exchange. And it really looks to leverage all of those core strengths to create a venue for peer learning between New York and urban leaders around the world, to unstick some of the most urgent debates here in New York. We know that many of the most defining issues really can't be solved by recycling local ideas and solutions. And there's, the moment is now really to build solidarity between New York and other cities that are pioneering cutting edge projects, policies that can inform strategies, that can contribute to the public conversation and also energize leaders to advocate for, more effectively on behalf of New Yorkers. So the intention is that each year, the Global Exchange program will take on a pressing issue that is facing the city: infrastructure, housing affordability, climate resilience, and that will be the basis for the fellowship and a series of public conversations that are meant to inspire even more New Yorkers with a vision for what the city could be. So it was obvious to us that housing, had to be the first issue that we took on. It's the mother of all problems in New York right now. So the prompt of our inaugural year is, what can New York learn from cities around the world that are taking big swings to confront their housing crises? As our challenges grow deeper and more complex, with fewer and fewer places to live, higher and higher rent burden, really nobody in the city can afford to thrive. And so we want to help to disrupt this trend, to infuse the conversation with new ideas that really break from the status quo and help to put a dent in this unprecedented housing shortage that we're confronted with. We know there are very earnest efforts underway to create new supply and protect tenants through incentives and policy measures, but they really haven't done enough in the face of steep population growth, outdated regulation, escalating costs, and political infighting around where, how, and for whom to build new housing. And the city's goals, they're framed around unit counts, around affordability tiers, statewide mandates, but this hasn't been successful in really motivating the kind of public policy shifts needed or swayed the public to welcome change into their neighborhoods. And so the forum really believes this is an all-in moment for housing, that we need to spark a new narrative around what is possible by looking beyond the 5 boroughs to source interesting ideas and strategies. And we also recognize that so much thoughtful and ambitious work is already being done by local leaders to address this crisis, of which many of you tuned in today are really on the front lines of leading. And so when we were designing this program, we asked ourselves, like, how could we be supportive and complementary of these efforts? How could we add to the conversation? So simply put, we want to help New York learn from around the world. So New York City's housing challenges are huge and often framed as uniquely complex, which is a challenge for us in terms of looking outside of the city and thinking and looking to cities that are grappling with similar challenges and implementing creative solutions. So we want to sort of disrupt this notion of New York exceptionalism in order to motivate more ambitious reform. And we are encouraging fellows to explore really the cultures and the political shifts behind the bold housing changes that have happened around the world, to understand how these big swings come to pass. So we're not just looking at the outcomes of good decision making in isolation. We want to ask, how did each city get here? Whether it be through base building, legislative wins, powerful narratives, campaigns. And the forum wants to draw on our connections and bring the most inspiring leaders from around the world to support all of you in learning and strategizing how we can get our neighbors and policymakers to care more deeply about housing and to demand the kind of change that we need. So the goal behind, that's the goal behind this fellowship, is to invest in a powerful coalition of 40 rising leaders across all disciplines that are touching the housing debate, to build bridges between New York and our peer cities, to uncover cutting edge projects and demand courageous public policy. And we're creating a container for collaboration between different and oftentimes siloed disciplines so that leaders can weave together their expertise and examine the intersecting challenges that are shaping the housing crisis. And we really want to take a very experiential learning approach through this program. So fellows will engage with global experts, travel to a peer city to study alternative approaches, publish insights, and meet with local decision makers to champion reform. And as you may be aware, this is the first time we've done this particular fellowship. We've done others, but this is the first time we're doing the global fellowship. And we're really excited and interested to build it and co-create it with all those who are participating. So, we have a lot of experience in this realm and we have an initial structure in mind, but our goal is really to support the fellows to create change. So to leverage the Urban Design Forum's name and to make, connections to help you validate new perspectives and energize the debate. So that's really the opportunity that we see here in this first year. So the program will be anchored around these 5 key intersecting challenges that we hope to see represented within the cohort. So when Dan and I were initially laying the groundwork for this program, we surveyed 80 housing leaders across the city to help us hone in on the topic areas, with the goal of really looking beyond the recent legislative session, to investigate the future of these challenges and challenges that are really on the horizon. So fellows will join a working group that corresponds with each of these topics, and that intersects with their expertise and interest. I'll quickly walk you through those in more depth. So new arrivals, the recent wave of asylum seekers has raised questions of how to house new arrivals and support them in rooting within New York City communities. So how are other cities effectively managing the pressure on an already strained housing market? Deepening affordability. So housing prices are increasingly inaccessible to working New Yorkers. How are cities promoting affordability through rent regulation, community ownership, creative financing models, public-private partnerships? Cutting red tape, that's really looking at regulation. What are cities doing to remove onerous regulations and streamline their zoning codes to make it easier to build the kind of housing most needed? Advancing green solutions. Cities must creatively confront the dual challenge of delivering housing while limiting carbon emissions. How are cities leveraging carbon retrofits, timber construction, and adaptive reuse to create new housing while reaching climate goals? Building buy-in. Many neighborhoods are resisting new housing because they fear change in their communities. How are other cities engaging local communities in the planning process and fostering community buy-in? What are the examples of dense infill development that strengthens neighborhood character? So, in opting into one of these groups, it doesn't have to be the one that you're most familiar with, but it will, in many respects, shape your fellow experience, because it'll be what you're sort of going out into the world and surveying in response to. So who should apply? Who's a good candidate for this fellowship? We are welcoming mid-career professionals in or entering executive leadership within their field. So looking for people that have between 10 and 20 years of experience. And we're looking for fellow folks who are really interested in opportunities to develop their leadership skills, their insights, their networks through being at the forefront of this global research initiative, and really want to interface with a broad range of housing stakeholders across the debate. So it's really, folks who want to build their capacity as leaders of within their fields. Fellow prospects should be, looking for opportunities to break out of the siloed spaces that we often find ourselves in. So making connections and working collaboratively across fields and cities to expand their perspectives on these very thorny issues. So we want to see applicants from a range of professions and experiences to apply that are based in New York City's metro area across design, development, real estate, community development, advocacy, law, policy. In short, if you don't feel like this fellowship, is for you, you should still apply. The only, word of caution we have is against applicants who only have a few years of professional experience. We have other great opportunities for folks who are just getting their footing in their respective fields. The Forefront Fellowship is specifically designed for emerging professionals. So we think one of the strengths of this program will be enabling mid-career professionals and leaders to really step back from their work, to reflect and to recharge together. And again, we're available to answer any other questions as if you're not sure about whether you're the right candidate, but we're encouraging many different types of disciplines to apply. So the program structure, so fellows will dive into those aforementioned topics through 120 hours of leadership development programming. And as we said, heavily grounded in experiential learning. So the goal is for fellows not just to immerse themselves in their given focus area, but to gain a kaleidoscopic understanding of the issues and the stakeholders that are shaping the global housing debate. So one of the main features of this program are going to be learning days, and each working group will organize an experiential kind of program that looks to connect the full cohort, the leaders, and the insights that are uncovered through the global research that everyone's conducting. So we want you to both ground yourself and colleagues in the challenges that New York is facing and inspire them for, by looking at what else is happening around the world. And alongside these learning days, we'll also be programming a speaker series that will invite international leaders to New York. And this will be followed by dinners with working groups and guests. And we're going to do our best also to schedule these in conjunction with the learning days so that we can invite those international leaders and speakers to join the fellow conversations and speak more to the nuances of their work. The program kicks off with a 2-day orientation in July, but the first sort of major benchmark for the program will be a trip to Berlin in the fall. It'll be a study trip to delve deeply into this alternative housing market and experience firsthand the power of the learning day sort of format through a dynamic mix of presentations, of site visits, and working sessions. Berlin, for those of you who aren't familiar, that's a city that has really been heavily impacted by the housing crisis and has been adopting really progressive measures to ease affordability, to create new supply, to decarbonize its housing stock, welcome new arrivals. So it's really hitting on many of the themes that we're looking to explore head on through this program. In terms of the outputs for this, we want to work with all of you to define really what the right outputs are. These are our ideas, but at minimum, we want to summarize and synthesize the global best practices and to showcase innovative ideas through a culminating publication. But again, we really want to support the fellows in identifying and advancing on ideas around outputs that they might have. and the kind of impact that you think. And we also want to support fellows through writing op-eds, making presentations, participating in conferences. So really looking to amplify these learnings and findings to new audiences. And, you know, to bring these to elected officials, agency leaders, strategize partnerships, fundraise for pilots, so, you know, support organizing efforts, what have you. There's many different directions that that we can take this work in together, which is exciting. Those are some examples. So what are we offering, you know, through this? We've sort of woven those points through, but to sort of summarize, you know, we're really intent on investing in all of you and your diverse talents to be the leaders of change in this space. And so to get us there, we designed this program so that participants could build their network. So fellows will collaborate with leading experts in other disciplines and cities to produce original research. So have the chance again to lead this cutting edge research and showcase learnings to thought leaders and decision makers, to create civic change through deepening understanding of the emerging challenges in the built environment, develop expertise on this theme, build collective strategies to champion change. Develop personal leadership, so fellows will develop leadership skills through experiential programming and broad stakeholder engagement, while also gaining visibility through workshops, programs, and connections to leading experts around the world. And then also leveraging our membership. The forum is an incredible community, and fellows gain access to this member network through workshops, roundtables, tours, and, you know, engage in this organization beyond the life cycle of this program. And what we're asking for is that, you know, fellows come earnestly looking to build together to shape the program and the cohort experience. So we're looking for fellows to be really actively engaged and participating in, you know, in the activities that we've designed, to work collaboratively. It's important that fellows, you know, are respecting of each other's differences. That's the diversity of this cohort is what it's going to make it most interesting. But, you know, we want fellows to respect and learn from each other's lived experiences and differing perspectives, and really to bring rigor and creativity. So we're looking for fellows to really think critically and expansively about these questions, with the goal of really constructively moving this conversation forward. All of this information is also available in the collateral that we've distributed and put on our website, but just to quickly flash the key sort of program activities, there'll be an orientation in the late summer, the study trip in the fall, and then these learning days and public programs will be distributed across the winter and into the new year. So the culminating event would happen on the 14th of March. And again, we're hopeful that folks who apply will you know, make the concerted effort to participate in all of this programming. That's really important, the active participation of everybody. And applications are due on the 21st of June via our online application. So we're asking folks to submit their resume, a 500-word statement of interest, a nominating letter by somebody who, by a current or past employer, or someone that's familiar with your work. And you can email me at any point if you have questions about anything that we've covered basically through this presentation. And our aim, you'll see there's a cost associated with it. There's a tuition of $5,100, and this covers the 120 hours of facilitated training, the bespoke programming with global leaders. And, you know, we are going to make scholarships available to help cover the cost of participation for those who indicate, and it'll be needs-based consideration. So you can indicate whether you'd like to be considered for partial or full support through the application. And we also encourage for those who are able to appeal to their employers around professional development. You know, we're happy to help you make this case around the value proposition. But, you know, we want to just make the point clear that we don't want anyone to feel that they should not apply because of lack of funds. Please apply, and we'll do our very best to make this program feasible and inclusive. And that, you know, means recognizing that not everyone has the funds to contribute. So please let us know if you have any questions around that. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up for questions. Trying to figure out how to.
Thanks, Stacy.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop your screen share. And yeah, I welcome questions in the chat. It seems like we've got a couple so far. Hey, everyone, I'm Dan McPhee. I'm the Executive Director of the Urban Design Forum. I'm so excited to work with you on this. This is going to be a lot of fun. Let's talk through some of the questions we've got. So I already answered one, but thought it might be helpful. Someone has 7 years of work experience, but they have some direct experience working on the migrant crisis and working in a commissioner's office around housing. Please apply. You know, we are trying to figure out exactly what this program, this cohort will look like. And we certainly welcome folks who don't fit exactly every specification to think about it. The only note of caution that Stacy mentioned is for folks who have just a couple of years of experience, we feel like there's other programs that are better suited to where you are in your career trajectories. So happy to talk more about that. Stacy, do you want to take the question around peer cities that are, you know, what city are we visiting? Are there others within or outside the US that people will be visiting through the program?
Yeah, so there's only one study trip a year. So as we mentioned, Berlin will be the destination for our first study trip. In terms of other places that we look to explore, so you know, we've been surveying cities around the world to sort of identify those that are linked to each of these questions that we've defined. You know, whether around affordable housing, obviously Vienna and Singapore and others, there's many examples, and we sort of are going to come to the table with some of that pre-research done. But the intent is really for the fellows to help us in identifying, you know, those places that for further exploration. And we're really encouraging folks to look beyond some of the more obvious destinations, London, Singapore, Hong Kong, others that sort of emerge, you know, through this debate or sort of get a lot of airtime. I don't know if that answers the question.
Great. It says the online application, the brochure is not active, so we'll take a look at that. Thanks for pointing that out. There's a couple questions around the nominating letter, whether it should be sent by the nominator directly, whether it is better to have it from someone from your current employer or an outside ally, how many letters to have. I'll take that one, Stacy. So we welcome folks to send one letter. One letter is great. If you want to send more than that, you're welcome, but there's no need to send more than that. We welcome you to do it from either a current employer or from an outside ally, whoever you feel like best speaks to your interests and your career trajectories and sort of like what kind of change you want to see in the city. And I think that's covering all the nominating letters. So why don't we move on to, there's a couple of questions around the learning days, whether they're in person or virtual, who are the instructors or presenters. Why don't you, and say maybe some of the topics you're hoping to tackle during those learning days. Why don't you cover that for folks?
Yeah, so all of this programming is in person. So again, this is a highly experiential program, and that's why we've designed this program for New York-based professionals, because we want to encourage folks to attend all of those learning days in person. In terms of the instructor, there's no instructor per se. We intend to invite international speakers and leaders to come present their work to the wider forum community. And the hope is that some of those folks will be actually participating in the learning days to correspond with the learning days. But for the most part, we're looking to the fellows themselves to help us in programming those learning days. So the idea is, who have you, you know, who are some of the leaders and folks that you've identified through your research that you can ground those learning experiences in for the full cohort. It should be mentioned, of course, like we're facilitators and connectors, and we're always ready to help and thinking about how best to structure these days. And part of the intention also in going to Berlin is to sort of show what kind of learning experience, you know, the learning days could be through that dynamic mix of sessions. And so we'll be readily available to support you in that process.
Yeah, and I think it's just worth reiterating that our job is really to support the folks who have the experience in housing. We are not ourselves housers, we're facilitators. So we really want to figure out how to support all of you to investigate the issues you think are most important to New York and help you create the change you want to see in the city. And so we are going to be looking for every opportunity we can to leverage our network in support of those interests. And as you define what are the challenges you really want to dig into, we're going to figure out how to mine our network both locally and abroad to help you think those questions through. Okay. There's a question about application process, interviews, other steps. Do you want to talk about that, Stacy? Just question panel and how we're going to move this forward.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing that one. Which one?
Just application process, interviews, and other steps.
Okay. So applications are due on the 21st. There's an online application, a Google form that you can use to submit your resume, your letter of interest, your nominating letter can be sent directly to me. My email address is present on all of the application materials. And then we will be convening a small panel of experts, including some UDF staff to vet candidates. And then by the end of the month, we'll be selecting the cohort. And the intention is to announce the full cohort at the beginning of July.
Great. Before we get into a couple of questions around content, let's talk about logistics. So there's a question that says they really love the program, would like to participate. Is there any help or support regarding applying for a Germany Schengen visa, considering the timeline? We are unfortunately not going to be able to help people do complex visa questions. We're going to just be able to help support people in participating in New York, or excuse me, in Berlin when they visit. And there are a couple of questions here about New York residency. We really do want people to be from the New York City area. This is a fellowship really for folks who are thinking about the future of the city. And so that's kind of an important piece, is to either live or work in the city for us. And okay, let's turn to, there's a question around, should they propose more than one topic if they work at the intersection of proposed topics? Do you want to take that one on?
Yeah, so as part of the application, we'll have people identify their top 3 in descending order of preference. So that'll give us the opportunity to place people. Well, folks can indicate interests beyond just one topic, and that can also be a conversation as we put those working groups together, which will happen during the orientation in July.
Great. Yeah, welcome you to, we know that these topics are deeply interlinked. Feel free to indicate to us what you're interested in, and we're happy to help you realize it.
Yeah, and we've also designed the topic such that the fellows can relate, within their working groups, hone their investigation and take that in any number of different directions. These are, intentionally malleable and
great. There's a question about, given that other cities in the United States are grappling with similar issues and in some instances taking interesting approaches that could be applied, will any national info exchange be part of the program? We are happy to help you support, conversations across the country. That's wonderful. There's really important stuff happening all across the country. We don't want you to be afraid of it or shy from it. So feel free to, share what you're interested in and work with your group to figure out what to investigate. Do you want to cover the question just again about tuition payment and paid in July or flexibility? Yeah.
Yeah. So we are looking to collect dues before the study trip in the fall. And as we mentioned, we encourage folks to indicate if they have if they need support, and we will be deliberating that in our selection process. And for those who want to be considered for a payment plan, we can also work out those details as well.
Yeah, again, we don't want folks to not apply for fear of lack of funds. Please apply and let us know what's going to work for you. We're happy to work with you. There's a question about the mayor's city of yes and thinking about regulations around housing and building new housing. Yes, so we are definitely following closely what's happening in the city, what's happening in Albany, what's happening across the country. You know, I think what we want to do is really figure out how to invest in you all to create the change you want to see around housing policy. And so for some of you, it might be looking at some of the questions that the city of yes is looking at, trying to understand how other cities have moved through some of those hard discussions and achieved a good result. It might be that we're looking at topics that aren't currently being investigated in any of the city's initiatives. So for instance, we'll be looking in Berlin where there's pretty aggressive rent regulation, and even in some cases, they're looking at expropriating real estate. You know, we are willing to look at a wide range of housing questions that you're all interested in. And so, you know, feel free to talk about the issues that are interesting to you, and we'll help you kind of, yeah, connect and think about them more fully. And there's a question. Yeah, do you want to take the last
No,
one?
I see a question that was in the webinar chat that didn't make it into the Q&A. I just wanted to make sure it was covered. Wondering what kind of activities are included in the study trip to Berlin. So this will be structured around those topic areas, and we'll be meeting with city officials. We'll be doing tours of interesting projects that are pertaining to each of these themes. We'll be meeting with other experts and doing kind of working sessions. So it's a pretty dynamic mix of tours, talks, presentations, with the intention of thinking, again, holistically about those issues and how they're manifesting themselves in this alternative market, and what are some of the ideas and insights that we can aggregate and bring back to the city, New York.
Great. Thanks, Stacey. So there's a question about what motivated Urban Design Forum to set up this program and how does it fit into our broader strategy? Do you want to talk a little about that, and maybe I can follow up?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a long ambition of UDF. Dan can speak more to this, to have a global dimension to the conversation. There isn't a civic organization that's really a platform for convening, you know, New York's civic community with leaders around the world. So we saw there was a real opportunity space there. You know, to be the leading venue that experts would visit as they pass through the city. So it should be just re-emphasized that this is a multi-year initiative. This is the first year of, you know, what is intended to be an ongoing discourse over the course of years, in which we're building bridges and relationships with other cities, other civic institutions, you know, our counterparts in other places. So building out that network of learning and exchange over time, that can help to reinforce the foundational mission of UDF, which is really to, you know, improve the city. And it's not about exporting learnings, it's about really unsticking those local debates here, which is what UDF has done so well for years. Do you want to build on that?
Yeah. It's great to have this new tool in our toolkit. You know, we feel like there's so many different ways to create change in the city, and the forum is doing a lot of things already. We're investing in young leaders. We're working on projects in the public realm. We're thinking about policy transformation, but there's some challenges that we really feel like New York City needs a little more inspiration, and it needs some outside voices to help shape the conversation. And so we feel like this is a great opportunity to do that. First with housing, but potentially with other questions that the city is facing in future years. Urban Design Forum, it's an awesome community of people who care about New York. If this doesn't feel like the right opportunity, you should definitely take a look at some of our other materials and fellowships that are available. But if this even sounds interesting to you, if you're even thinking about it and you'd like to reach out and talk with us more, please do. You'll see that there's, you know, 46 people on this call. We've heard from about 100 people so far. We welcome you to get in touch with us. We want to, you know, build a relationship with you. We want to learn about your interests, and figure out how we can plug you in. And so, yeah, we certainly encourage you to apply, and it's gonna be fun. The first year is always a little bit of a wild ride, but it's actually some of the best years I've had at the forum have been the kind of first year of something. It's building something together, and if that's the kind of thing that appeals to you, please join us.
I'm seeing a question about my reference to it being multi-year. So just to clarify, each year will have its own cohort, and its own topic. But the larger program will extend for years to come. Like, we're gonna build a unique cohort each year, and hope to build on the learnings and the conversations. But for this specific cohort that we're building now, the program would commence in July and would carry through March of 2025. Great.
Do we have any other questions? I know that there's one more just from a latecomer about housing intersection and costs associated. Do you want to cover that one too?
Yes. Is there direct experience with housing required for the application, or is an interest in the topic sufficient? I think I'd need a little bit more detail. I think, we are definitely looking for people that have some experience in their relative field, but, it can be unconventional. So I'd love to explore with you what that means, what experience you're bringing to the table. But we're not dissuading anybody if they don't have experience. What are the costs associated with the program? The tuition is $5,100 for the full program. And I'm not sure if you missed this point, but we have a scholarship fund that will be dispersing across the applicant pool. So that information is available through the online portal.
Great. Yeah, I think just on the question about housing experience, we certainly encourage folks to apply, but I think this is going to be a group that's deeply focused on housing policy and housing questions. So I think for folks who are going to be most immersed in this experience and benefit the most, it's folks who have experience in this subject matter. They're interested to take a step back. They want to kind of reflect and recharge. And build their networks and insights. So we certainly welcome people with that particular focus to get involved. But that if you have some kind of aligned focus, maybe you're working on the decarbonization of buildings, or you're thinking about social services for new arrivals. Like, if you're finding those intersections naturally, please, we welcome you to apply, and we're happy to help draw those connections. Got a question about what a learning day might look like. Do you want to cover that one?
Yeah, so we want to, again, ground it in New York City's sort of challenges. So maybe it will be, visiting some projects in New York, but also to, zooming experts in that you've corresponded with in other cities that might have interesting insights, presenting on some of the key case studies that you've identified. Hosting, like, maybe there's a charrette, it can really take any number of different directions, but we've found that it's most interesting when folks are sort of getting out into the field to understand, maybe what is the applicability of some of the insights and case studies and ideas that you've found in other cities in the context of New York. We want to make sure that this isn't all pie in the sky, but we're really connecting it directly back to what New York's challenges are. Do you want to build on that, Dan? Is there anything?
Yeah, no, I think we're going to take our lead from you. We're happy to help you reach out to people, think about what the structure of the day is. I don't want you to worry too much about struggling with convening or anything like that, but we certainly want to make it an experience that you all drive and that we're really in a supportive role.
So the program in its totality will be around 120 hours, but we're also urging folks to carve out and anticipate time for independent work. So we've said 4 hours of independent work a week. It may be more in some places, less in others, because the learning days are dispersed over the course of months. So, but I think it's, it's good to sort of generally anticipate 4 hours on top of what we've tallied.
Great. It seems like that might be the end of the questions. We're so grateful for you all for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful dinner tonight. But yeah, please do reach out with your questions, your ideas. We'd love to talk with you, and yeah, hope to see you in the applicant pool.
Yeah, and we definitely, for those of you who know other candidates that maybe weren't able to join, or that this opportunity isn't on their radar yet, you know, the best folks we've heard from thus far have come through suggestions of people already in our network. So, you know, we certainly hope you'll encourage others to check this opportunity out, your peers and whatnot. Thanks, everybody. I'm standing by if you have any questions or want to connect for a follow-up conversation if any questions didn't get answered. And I look forward to working with all of you guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Look forward to being in touch.